Welcome to another episode of Decoding Mastery, where we dive deep into the lives of masters from different parts of the world. Today, we have an extraordinary guest, Sean O'Neill, a best selling author, award winning screenwriter, and a legendary storyteller. With a career spanning multiple creative fields, Sean has captivated audiences with his powerful narratives and unique perspective. Whether through his books or his screenwriting, he has proven time and time again that storytelling is an art form that can change the way we see the world. Get ready for a fascinating conversation with one of the true masters of the craft. Hi, Sean.
Hi, how are you?
I'm good. How are you?
I'm doing good, thank you. As I mentioned, I'm wearing my Canada hat today in support of our country and our current trade war with our friends to the south of us.
Okay, that's great. Welcome to my podcast. So, this podcast is all about exploring the lives of masters like you. You are a best selling author, award winning screenwriter, and you are a legendary storyteller. So, a lot of things to learn from you.
So I
And
hear. Yes.
yeah. So, how it all started, Sean? Uh, when did it happen that you decide to become a storyteller and choose it as a
I think I
profession?
was well, I think I was born a storyteller, to be fair. I was always well known for catching the attention of those around me with various stories and my general creative nature. But to be fair, it was nothing more than just telling stories amongst family and friends and so on. Up until about 7 years ago. So prior to that, I was a corporate executive. At one time, I was the CEO of a Canadian software company, and I had a very successful career on that side. But around 7 years ago, I decided that there was more to life, I felt, and I wanted to take my abilities, talents as a storyteller, as a story creator, and actually do something more about it in the form of starting to write books. So I took a course. I have an MBA from educational background, but again, never used that in the form of creating writing material other than what I did for work, which was more in RFPs and installation manuals and things like that over the years. So I took a creative writing course here in Toronto at the University of Toronto, and started down the path of writing. I wrote my first book, was published in 2019. It's called Brian's Dream, and it was based on a dream that I had had. And it's actually a bit of the story of my wife and I. My wife is Punjabi, and I'm Irish background. And the story takes place in Boston in the 70s between a Boston Irish cop and a Punjabi woman who has come to Boston to study at Harvard. Uh, and it kind of took off from there. It was almost more a hobby when I got started. And here I am 7 years later, 15 books done. Two have hit bestseller level, won several awards, literary awards. And on top of that, I branched out into screenwriting. And I've now won some 20 or so film festival for best script.
So, wow. So it was a brave decision that you were living a very good corporate life and you moved to writing books, screenplays. So, what was there any event that happened in your life that you decided that okay, now it's enough. Now I should pursue my passion.
Yeah, I would say there probably was. I was at the time when I made the decision, I was the head of consulting for another software company here in the Toronto area. And I'll be honest, I had been at this now for, some 30 years, and it was becoming repetitive. And what made matters difficult was I worked for the CEO of the company, and the CEO and I did not see eye to eye. And it really created a negative environment for me. So here I was, later in my career, having had a very successful career, And I was starting to dread getting up in the morning and going to the office. And, I had always said that if I reached that point in life, it's time for a change. And one day I came home after a particularly bad meeting. I said, I'm done. I'm done with this. My wife wasn't overly thrilled about me announcing that I was leaving a corporate career to become an unpaid writer. But 7 years later, she's very supportive of what I do. She's seen the success. And I'll be fair, I don't make the money I did back then. But I feel that I have more enjoyment in life and more fulfilling um, role that I'm playing, I think, at this stage. So, it often isn't one day that triggers something, it's a buildup of things. So it was the repetitiveness of the work, the fact that, I wasn't growing as an individual anymore, and then, friction within the workplace that I felt, at 50 years old, I had had enough of that. And I really wanted to be my own boss.
Yeah, great, Sean, great story. Like how it all happened. I can understand it was not easy for you initially, like in the first 2 years when you are not making money and
Yeah.
you're writing book. So I can understand, like from family perspective as well as professional perspective, it's not easy. Uh, the kind of stress you must have gone through at that time. So,
Yeah. And to a degree still go through, right?
yeah,
We've got two daughters in university right now. They're away living at the university. So there are financial responsibilities that, my wife
right.
and I continue to maintain. And it would be easier if I was, just accepted my lot in life and continued to go to some office somewhere here in the Toronto area. I'm not that person. Um, I wanted to fulfill more than simply just going about the day.
Yeah, and when you are a CEO, so you have to wear a hat, like you have to wear different hats. You have to take care of operations, you have to take care of sales and marketing,
Yeah.
all this good stuff. But when you become a writer, so now you have to focus only on that part. So it's again, you're shifting your personality. You are like earlier, you are like a kind of jack of all trades. You have to understand everything about the business and you have to work accordingly. But now you have to just focus on the one part and that you have to become master in it. So again, it's a very different kind of role
Yeah.
that you have to play when you are a writer.
Yeah, it is. What I've learned through the process is you do still wear different hats to a degree. So some days I'm a creator. Some days I'm working on the next book or the next movie, and I've got the ideas in my head and I'm writing them down. And then there are other days where I'm analyzing my sales results from Amazon and other sources and looking at the click-through rates, looking at the price per click and trying to decide whether I'm hitting my target market or not. And then other days I'm marketing as I'm doing now. So I'm at a book signing or I'm attending a film festival event or red carpet event and I'm marketing. So you got creating, you got analyzing, and you got marketing. It's at a different level than you would have, say, if I were still running a software company. But you do get the opportunity to have a little bit of variety in that. I'll be honest with you, because it's such a solitary environment, and I'm a very social person. I took a role at a local company here where I go in 2 to 3 days a week. And what it does is gives me my social environment. It lets me talk to people, it lets me be part of a team, but without the obligation that comes with being a senior executive.
Yeah, it's very important that because you're a social person, because generally mostly authors are they have to live in their own space and they have to work lonely. It's you can say it's a kind of lonely profession
Yeah.
when you are an author and a screenwriter. So what difference you found in these two kind of writing, screenwriting and writing book? Which one you like
Um,
better?
I don't know. It's funny. I enjoy the fact that I have a variety. I'll work on a book for 3 or 4 months and I'll just get tired of it, and I'll jump over and I'll go back and I'll do I'll update a screenplay that I wrote. Um, they are different. They're different in the sense that in a book, my books are written in the third person. or and you know it's you'll use he got up and wasn't feeling well. So I can't write that in a screenplay. Well, first it would be he gets up, but I can't say and he's not feeling well because it's visual. In the book, I could get into your head. In a screenplay, I can't. I have to show you why he's not feeling well. So he gets up, wobbles, and then throws up. There you go. So I've shown you that he's not feeling well. Where in the book, I can get into the head, and it takes a little while to make that transition. And I'll be honest, sometimes I'm writing a screenplay, and I'll flip back to he got up, and then I'll look at it again. No, 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 he gets up because it's present tense, and I have to show it through action and visuals. Um, I don't think I have a favorite. I think I enjoy both pretty much equally. What I really enjoy is taking one of my books and then writing the screen adaptation for it because it gets me to think. And generally, when I do this, I'll go back and do a second edition of the book because I've taken an insight from the story from a more visual perspective. And I feel that when I go back to the book, it improves the quality of what was written in the original book. So, to answer your question, I like doing both. I like the variety that it gives me. And there are a number of authors that cannot do this. And I've had conversations with many authors that, I'll get calls out of the blue or emails and somebody asking me, how do you do an adaptation? Like, how is it that you could take that form of a story and change the form? And they'll be honest with me and tell me that they've tried and can't do it. So there's a small population of writers that are able to flip back and forth comfortably and successfully. So in many ways, I just feel like, again, it's a gift of storytelling. And I just have to teach myself how to tell the stories from different lenses.
Really amazing that how you are doing it, transitioning from one from book to screenwriting. That's really amazing that the process you are following, and maybe you are gifted or you are improving yourself, and you have a gift of storytelling, and you are also working on it to improve your in this part that moving transitioning from book to screenwriting. So, are there any influence in your life, any author or any filmmaker who has influenced you the most when you decided to take this as a career?
Yeah, so I was a reader growing up. I think, if for any aspiring writers out there, read a lot. Uh, Read different authors too, to get different perspectives on how they approach storytelling. So I basically growing up, I read a book a week for many, many years. What got me into reading, and I'll always acknowledge this and thank the writer for it because it just opened up this incredible perspective of stories was J.R.R. Tolkien and Lord of the Rings. So my when I was probably about 12 or 13, my father gave me the first book of Lord of the Fellowship of the Rings. And I just I couldn't put it down. I was just so mesmerized by how someone could craft such a wonderful story. I ended up going out and buying the second and third book, and I've read that series probably 6 or 7 times throughout my life. And from there, I moved on to science fiction. So science fiction, I've always enjoyed science fiction. If there's a genre that is my preferred, it's science fiction, and I haven't really written any yet. I have a couple in planning, but I'll tell you why. Science fictions have to be scientifically perfect, or you get panned, right? So I'm not sure I'm ready to take that on. I get closer, I'm not sure I'm ready. So science fiction became my next love, and I read I think every book pretty much written by Arthur C. Clarke. Um, is probably my favorite writer.
Okay.
Uh, Read many Isaac Asimov's, and then I found horror with Stephen King, and then I found fantasy. Um, so I've kind of gone back and around, and more recently, I would say I've landed on, the Dan Brown type of stories. I read a bunch of Clive Cussler's books and really enjoyed those too. So I sort of migrated into this thriller era, and a lot of my stories, while mostly horror based, are all thriller based more than anything else. I have supernatural ones, but they're still thrillers. I have apocalyptic, they're still thrillers. And I have a few romantic
Okay.
thrillers. Heavy on the thrill, lighter on the romance, but I have a few of those as well.
Okay, Sean, great. So, Sean, you have met so many authors and screenwriters in your life, especially in these 7 years. So, what qualities you found that make a good, that turn a good author to a great author, or good screenwriter to a great screenwriter? One quality you told that reading books, it helps a lot. What other qualities you think are important to turn from good to great?
Eh, I think a lot of it has to do, well, you need a good story, right? So you can be a master's of English lit, terrific writer, perfect grammar, but if you can't tell a good story, it doesn't matter, right? I'd rather read a story that perhaps has some grammatical errors because the story's good, as opposed to how well it's written. So it comes down, the story has to be captivating. So it has to be a subject or a topic that you find interesting. It has to be written in a manner. There's a process. There's a three-act structure, right? And I think it's important to make sure that you're managing the highs and the lows. You're building it up, letting it down, building it up, and um, characters. So if there's one thing that I'm focusing on lately, um, it's the depth of the characters within the story. So my book last summer was called Jill, Jill, and it's my most successful. It's not my most successful from a sales perspective, but it's my most um, successful from a literary perspective. And what I did in that, the story's compelling. 1953, post-war Tokyo, a tall albino actress from the Midwest is there doing American remakes or Japanese remakes of American classic films. And the character that I created in her is so unique. Um, I went from her background to understand why she is what she is and what she becomes in the end. So you got to come up with a good story, and listen to feedback. So my last book, Go Away Banshee, I love the story in it, but it's Irish myths, legends, and kind of my background. But I've had some of my regular writers say, "Oh, not your best work." Because the story was more important to me than it was to the reader. So it's a good story, knowing your audience, follow the proper structure, and character. Make the character. You got to either love or hate a character, and you got to have a mix of them in the story, right? Um, so I mean, that's at the end of the day kind of the playbook, and repetitiveness. So your first book is not going to be very good. It's unless you're a phenom, your first book's not going to be that good. Accept it. Take the feedback. Listen to what the reviewers say, and learn from that. Try to pick each part of it apart and say, well, did this work? Did this work? Did this not work? And go back and do it again and do it again, do it again, do it again. And by the time you get to your 15th book, you kind of know what you're doing at that point.
That's a continuous improvement process. And best thing is that you listen to feedback. That is very important. Some people become arrogant. They think that whatever they are writing is best. So you are taking feedback from your readers, from other authors. It's very important to continuously develop yourself, to evolve yourself, become a better author, better storyteller. So Sean,
Yeah.
how do you come up
I
with
was,
ideas? Yeah, sorry.
okay. That's exactly where I was going to go next. um, so you have to have lived, right? I could be the greatest writer in the world at 25, but I've only lived 25 years. And, maybe I've done more in those 25 years than some others, but you have to have lived. So I've had a unique life, from a childhood. I wouldn't call it poverty, but we certainly struggled, um, to a very successful career, to having traveled the world. So part of my career is I worked everywhere. I worked in India, I worked in Singapore, I worked in Tokyo, all through Europe, Middle East, Central America. And as part of that, I had the opportunity to see different aspects of the world and experience different aspects of the world. And I've done different things too. I was a competitive hockey player, I was a semi-pro ball player, I was a licensed competitive boxer for years. So I've experienced emotions and teamwork and challenges and so on, and different people as a result of that. The film series that I'm just finishing up right now, Tales from the Grindhouse, as an example, one of the stories is called El Dia de los Muertos, and it takes place in Playa del Carmen, Mexico, where I had a condo for 12 years. So whenever I would go down, I would just chat with people, and I got to know some locals. One day my computer died. I needed a taxi to take me to Cancun. On the way up to Cancun, the taxi driver started telling me some legendary stories from the Mayan culture. And boom, bingo, there you go. There's a story. So I wrote it as one of the three stories in Grindhouse Caribbean. And it is one of the 6 episodes in my Tales from the Grindhouse. So interacting with people, interacting with the world, being observant, don't go around with blinders on, and talk to people, hear their stories, tell people some ideas you have. And I always tell authors, I say, if you've got a story that you're building, talk about it. Okay, people around you might go crazy, but talk about it because it forces you to think through what the details of the story are. I could tell, oh, I have this great story about a man in a submarine. Okay, well, what's it? Tell me more, tell me more. And the more you have to tell more, well, he snuck on the submarine. Why do you sneak on the submarine? Well, he's getting away from something. So you start just going, digging deeper, 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 deeper. And the other area for me, and this is kind of weird, this is probably my Asperger. So I'm on the spectrum, autism spectrum. And I have very vivid, somewhat insane dreams at times. At least 5 of my books, if not 6, have been initiated by a dream. So I woke up in the morning and went, that's a great story. And
Wow.
immediately start writing the details down right before the dream becomes an ancient memory. So yeah, interacting, the 2 places are interacting with the world, or 3 places, let's say, interacting with the world, dreams, but also having read so many other stories, and I watch film. I watch 2 to 3 movies every single day.
Superb.
Some of them are just for fun. Others are research, right? So, my book, The Omega Variant, has been compared to Stephen King's The Stand. Now, I wouldn't say that because I think Stephen King is a master and I think The Stand is a masterpiece. But there's aspects of The Stand in the back of my head while I'm writing The Omega Variant. So, world, dreams, and the experiences you've had with films and books are great sources for stories.
Superb, superb. What a great means idea generation process that because you are a social person, it helped you a lot meeting and interacting people and sharing your ideas and taking their ideas. Then your dreams, then you're writing down those ideas that you
Yeah.
see in dreams. Amazing, superb. So Sean, because you write horror stories, some of your stories are horror, and you write a thriller and you write supernatural. So, just bit curious to know, anything inspired you from real life events or any personal experiences that you had, or it's
Yeah,
completely imagination?
there's aspects of me in many of my books, right? So the other thing is, I mentioned the importance of having, deep characters. So you may be in my next book. You never know, because for me to write a character, I have to have a visual of the person I'm basing the character on, so I know how do they laugh, how do they move, what's their typical dialogue. So I base it on human beings that I know as well. Um, yeah, that's, I'm just sort of thinking through, do I have a formal idea? I don't think I have a formal idea process. Uh, I have usually 6 or 7 new projects in the works where I'll drop in and check. and add some thoughts to it. Like right now, I'm working on this series, and then I'm going back to edit a second edition of one of my books. But I have two new books in the works. One of them is my first military thriller, and again, military is another one like science fiction. You have to be technically perfect, so I intend to partner with somebody on it. But just yesterday, I was watching Apocalypse Now again, and I made a few notes for the characters that are in Apocalypse Now because I feel that they fit into the character structure that I'd already put together for it. It's called When We Were Kings. So it's a lot of the same themes, process, and mindset. Repeat themselves as I go through this process on both sides, screen and on book.
Okay, Sean. So amazing. Like you are describing your process of how you're taking inputs from different movies, characters. Okay, and I just can you explain the entire your writing process, the routine you follow daily, how many hours you spend in writing, and generally how much time does it take to complete a project? And you said that you are working two, three projects at a time. Am I right?
Yeah,
Yeah.
so I
Yeah.
have a primary, I always have a primary project. And then I
Okay.
have a secondary, and then I have kind of little pet things that I'm playing with on the side, which will
Okay.
eventually become a full-blown project. So I work 90% on my primary, 90 to 95% on my
Okay.
primary. I got the secondary 5 to 10% or so. That's really relief for me. So a book for me is about 4 months. So there's 3 months of writing, and then there's a month of editing. And I need a secondary more through the editing process, but also throughout the whole 3 to 4 month cycle, because you can get so bogged down in the story. You can tie yourself and twist yourself in the details. And the secondary project gives me the opportunity to step away from it.
Yeah.
So I typically write kind of 4 to 6 hours on average a day. Some days will be more. Some days I'll write in 8 to 10 hours. I
Great.
write every day. It's rare that I take a day off, and it's not because I feel pressured to do
Even
that.
on weekends? Even on
Oh,
weekends?
we get yeah. There's every day is the
Okay.
same for me. Like
Superb. Superb.
Saturdays and Sundays are.
Great.
I'm at a stage where my children are older now, away at university, so the time's there, and you start to think about, well, what do I want to use my time for, and I enjoy creating stories. I really do. This is who I am, what I am. So I'll go, as I said, 4 to 6 hours, 7 days a week, sometimes more, and then sometimes less. Some days, I'll tell my wife to say, "Girl, let's go for dinner. Let's go out. Let's go away for the day." I always have my laptop if we go away, and she falls asleep typically earlier than I do. So even if we're away, I've got my laptop. If she falls asleep, I'm ready. It's what keeps me sane. I think I would go if I was told to not write for a week. I'm not sure I'd make it. It's just become such a part of who I am. So I don't have set hours. It's really because being creative needs your mindset to be in a creative mindset. So by structuring hours, what I find is it dampens my creativity. So it's when I feel creative. So my typical day, I'll get up. I don't get up early. I get up, around 9:30. A long walk with the dog. Prepare a meal. Think about a few things, and then from lunchtime to close to dinner, that's my main writing period.
Okay.
In the evenings, I take it easy. We'll watch a movie or two, and then I'm back to writing. So I'll usually finish the day with an hour or two of writing as well. And that's often where I do my editing because it takes less. I don't want to knock any editors, but for me, it takes less mind power because I'm looking at the structure as opposed to the creation of what the story is.
Superb. Superb, Sean. Amazing that you're really enjoying writer's life. And
Yeah, I am. I am. it is, as I mentioned earlier, the one downside is that you're on your own all the time, right? So this is why I've had to take on an activity outside the house. So I also do some charity work, local charity work as well, with the food banks. So that it gives me this. I have always said, you need two things in life. You need structure and purpose, right? So
Right.
the purpose is the writing, the creating stories, and publishing the books. The structure, I need to have a few things around me. So, oh yeah, I have to. I'm working 6 hours over at this company this afternoon. So I occasionally do some consulting work as well for my old world, but I'm doing less and less of that because I've become much further away from how the businesses are run these days. So I'm less effective. So yeah, that's kind of the life of a writer.
Great. So Sean, you self-publish these books or you follow conventional publishing process?
So I've self-published to date. There are publishers interested in me now. So I may move in that direction. I'm working with one right now out of Ontario. We're trying to come to an arrangement, let's say, because the advantage of self-publishing is you own everything. And in my case, that's
Right.
good because, um, I dealt with one publisher and they wanted to own 50% of the rights to my film stuff too. And I said, no, 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 no. You're not publishing the film. I'm finding a producer. I'm like, but if they're going to publish a book, they want 50% of the rights. So there's pros and cons. And I'm certainly in no way knocking traditional publishing. In fact, in many ways, it's better because you don't have to be your own marketer. You don't have to be constantly putting the money into advertising and so on and so forth and figuring out which works and which doesn't. But the downside is that they retain control of the
Right.
IP and related IPs in terms of the adaptations, if it ever happens, right? And it's on their schedule. They may say, "Oh, we're going to publish your book next year." Okay, what do I do until then? Well, go write another book, which I do
Yeah.
anyways. So I'm kind of at a space now where I'm re-exploring that. Again, there are advantages. I like the idea of being the creator and not the marketer. So that's where a lot of this comes down to. Initially, when I first started, my stuff admittedly wasn't good enough. It is now. There would be people jumping at Jill right now. So that's probably the one I'm going to experiment with from a traditional publisher design. We'll see where that goes. I had originally not planned to write the screen adaptation for Jill because the book is huge. It's my longest book. It's like 350 pages, and the challenge with that is, an 80,000 word book, if fully adapted to screen, would be uh, probably 6 to 7 hour movie.
Six
So
and
you
seven
have to
hours.
take,
It's a
yeah.
serious
So
kind of book.
you gotta take a lot out. So my typical books are in the 50 to 60,000 word range.
Okay.
So they're lighter, and the idea is that they're a quick pace thriller. They're for the price of a cup of coffee and enjoy and escape. Um, Back to Jill. I wasn't going to write the adaptation. I actually just started writing it. That's my pet project right now on the side. So I have primary, secondary, and pet, and the pet is Jill. So I've written the first four scenes and the last four scenes, and I just have to figure out how the hell am I going to get the rest of the story in at about an hour 50, and that's the challenge for it. So again, back to the publishers. If a publisher is interested in publishing it, um, the challenge I'm going to have is I think it's a compelling movie as well, and what do we do with that? So I'll deal with that if the situation arises, I guess.
So Sean, generally, how much time does it take to complete a book? You mentioned, I think, 3 months and then 1 month editing.
Yeah,
Am I right?
yeah,
Okay.
that's
So,
correct. So I always have the cover picked out even before I get far into the book, and then it becomes my decision on what day I want to release it. So, you do a lot of social marketing, social media marketing of it leading up
Mm.
to it. And you're on LinkedIn, I'm on LinkedIn. I have, some 7,000 followers on LinkedIn. So I'll tease it, and then announce it on Instagram, LinkedIn, and Facebook are the main ones that I use. I've been told I should be on TikTok. I'm not on TikTok. I'll be honest
Okay.
with you. I'm not sure how the hell to work with TikTok because it's such a different platform. So yeah,
So,
four months
yeah.
is a general cycle. So I get 2 books a year. Um, so you got 8 months there, and then the other 4 months I usually do two adaptations. The adaptation takes me kind of 6 to 8 weeks.
Okay.
Again, depending on the size of the book. So for me, it's easier in the sense that I've already started with a complete story, where the typical screenwriter who doesn't write a novel first is
Hmm.
writing the story in the screenplay. And thus, it's likely going to take a longer cycle than 6 to 8 weeks. But I don't, actually, it's a question I haven't asked many screenwriters. I probably should.
Okay, Sean. So, who is your target market? Uh, if I ask about demographics.
So for most of my stuff, it's kind of male 18 to 64.
Okay.
Um, for things like Jill and my Parminder's Journey um, trilogy, it's more female. So um, it'd be interesting. I don't have a lot of data. I just know what I get in terms of feedback from readers and reviews and so on. So I generally use that, but that's how I would see the split. So each book, if I'm writing a supernatural or apocalyptic horror story, I do know that it's most likely to be 18 to 20, 18 to 64 males that are reading
Mm-hmm.
it. Where Jill, my target was intentionally for women, and it has an LGBTQ um, theme in it as well, something different I introduced this time. I'm wondering. I haven't targeted that market. And it wasn't done to target a market. It was more. I just felt that was should be part of the nature of the story that I was telling in that one. So I'm still learning how to figure this out. And there you go back to the traditional publisher conversation, right? They got to figure it out. They'll do
Mm.
that for you. So in some ways, and I know sales could be better if I was doing a better job of this. Given the choice each day of creating a story versus analyzing sales results and marketing cues and so on, I'm going to write. Knowing full well that someday I got to get over to that other side.
Right. So, Sean, how do you get inside your target market's head? Means, if I say that, because people are becoming more and more sophisticated, people are now, if you're writing a horror story, so people like I give you just example. Like there are two kind of Spider-Man. One who became because of a spider, and the other who became because of technology, like an Iron Man.
Yeah.
He's having gadgets. So people to make it believable, their story that yes. So now you have to be more smarter. Like people are what kind of technologies they are having, what kind of they have seen in the past. So to make it digestible. So how you learn the psychology of your audience? Like you said that male is 18 to 64, and even females are also your part of your market.
Yeah, so on the female side, because of the nature of those books, it's more those who enjoy romance stories.
Okay.
um, where the horror and again in horror there are subgenres, right? There is so I write mostly supernatural and or apocalyptic, but the apocalyptic stories I write are all pre-apocalyptic.
Oh,
The Walking Dead is apocalyptic, it's post-apocalyptic.
yeah.
So what I find with those stories, you start to get into where you're targeting things, is that there's really no end. I see it as a bleak survival thing, and it just,
Yeah. Survival.
well, I do enjoy watching them. It doesn't appeal to me to be a creator for it. Now, you take the plague, you take demons, you take the Omega variant, um, Love in a Time of EMPs. These are all at that cusp of apocalypse. So it's really the reason I like that. It's change is happening. People are digesting it and trying to figure out what do I do. And that's where I find the more challenging is people are accepting what's happening and saying, oh, we've got to do something with it. Other people, oh no, nothing's happening. Um, and I have the ability to end the story then. Without having to drag it out, drag it. And that's why I like to do that on the apocalyptic because supernatural is easy. Twilight Zone, Supernatural. There's all these series that have been hugely successful dealing with supernatural, and I write these ones because I like them. I'm writing stories that I would like to watch, right? So I'm my own target market to a degree. I'm a guy who grew up watching horror, the Twilight Zone. There's been series after series over the years. I'm creating what I enjoy. I don't write gore or slasher. Friday the 13th, that type of stuff, Texas Chainsaw, that doesn't appeal to me at all. I don't even watch any of that. I like to be mentally challenged, not be revulsed by what I'm seeing on the screen. This is my personal take on it. So if I'm create the story I'm creating appeals to people like me is really what it comes down to, for the most part. And then I use my wife as the example for the other stuff, right? Does it appeal to her? Because if it appeals to her, it's probably got a broader
Okay.
market out there too. And again, I don't try to tailor the stories. It's a story I want to tell anyways, right? So, but I will kind of take that back a bit. It's a story I want to tell, but I will do a little tailoring to make sure that it's hitting what people want to read. Because at the end of the day, someone's got to want to buy the book and read it. And the best thing is they give it a rating after, and they tell their friends about it. Oh, I love this one. When I try to get into book clubs, I haven't done enough of that too, um, and then volunteer to come for the book club, meeting afterwards. So you pick my brain. Why did I make this character this way? Why did the story go that way? What were you thinking when you wrote this? Right? I enjoy having those conversations.
Okay, Sean, great. So when you share your story with your wife and family, so are they always agreeing with all your points, or sometimes they disagree?
Nope. So my dad is one of my beta readers, and he'll tell me pretty much. He's read all my stuff, and he's a huge reader, and he actually likes what I write. He's not reading it just because he's my dad. My wife and my kids, um, they will give me feedback, whether I like it or not, right? So
Okay.
what happens sometimes is because I'll talk about the story. I have to be cautious that I don't over talk about it because at some points they'll look at me and they go, "Would you just shut up?" So they're part of my feedback mechanism. Reviewers, most of my books go to a professional reviewer, and then the folks online who read them and provide feedback. And then I have beta readers, and I have people that I've gotten to know over the years that do follow me and will email me and send me notes and stuff. And I do like the beta readers are important. I have a few good ones. So, and I do listen. In particular, listen to the beta readers because they're taking the time out of their lives to actually read a story that isn't fully baked yet, and their feedback is really good. Jill, I had some terrific feedback in terms of Jill. I worked with another writer called Shiva Kumar. Um, Great. He's an actor. He's voiceover. He's a writer, and he was very valuable in the process. So I've got him down as not a co-writer, but as a contributor to the book. He helped because there's some, I won't call it erotic, but almost erotic scenes in the book, and I struggled with that. And he was, strangely enough, he was very helpful in that on that part. So um, yeah, it's a lot of feedback. Early in my career, somebody read a bad review about me on Amazon or Goodreads, whatever, and I get pissed off. It's like, oh, they don't know what they're talking about. And after a while, I realized that some of the reviews are just stupid. I'll leave it there. But some are constructive. And they'll say, and you're better off with a not overly friendly, constructive review than somebody just saying, "Great book." All right, that's nice for for me personally, but it doesn't make me a better writer. Somebody saying, "Well, you know what? That character was not well developed and didn't move the plot line along," and then you go back and you look at it and you go, "Yeah, damn it, they're kind of right." So, yeah, you you need you need input. You may have a great story, and you may
Yeah.
be able to write it, but it's a better story with accepting the fact that people will have thoughts and ideas on it.
Great, Sean. So you are an amazing storyteller. So how you structure your stories to keep your audience, maintain the suspense, keep them hooked, your audience, whether it's screenplay or books. Is there any general pattern that you follow in all your books and screenplays?
Yeah, so what you want to do is you want to have kind of act one introductory, getting the
Okay.
base of the story down, and then conflict and then resolution. What I do is particularly on the book side, it's not as easy on the screenplay side, but you can with scene in and out. Um, but I try to create that structure to a degree within chapters, so that when you get to the end of a chapter,
Okay.
I've left something hanging for you,
You
and
turn
you
the
go,
page.
well, I was going to put the book down, but
Yeah.
I think I'll read another chapter. And that's kind of the idea. So I build up within the chapter, and then I have like sort of these subplots that will hopefully, and I've gotten feedback to suggest that that is the case, um, get you to flip the page to the next chapter.
How much generally time you spend in researching up your new project? When you are
So
thinking about the idea, how much time does it take to research about all the stuff? How you plot that complete world? How much time does it take before writing?
it varies by story. And I do the research. I found again earlier in my career, if you're inaccurate about something, people find it. It's amazing. People
Yeah.
love being critiques or critics. Um, so, as an example, Jill, because it takes place in post-war Tokyo. Now, I've been to Tokyo. I worked in Tokyo, so I know the city, which visually is very helpful. So if you're writing about a place and you've never been there, you got to do a lot of research because you have to understand the culture of the place, the structure of the place, how people interact, and so on and so forth. So I've been fortunate enough to have been almost everywhere in this world, and multiple times. So for something like Jill, the research was more about the impact of the American occupation, how the economy was structured and the challenges within the economy, the lifting of the American occupation, the changing, the development of the Japanese film industry at the time. So that's and the imperial family. How did the imperial family? Believe it or not, the emperor still existed after World War II. While
Yeah.
the Americans had taken control of Japan, they entered into an agreement with the emperor for the emperor to stay. So all of this I needed to research, and so that's an example of a degree of research that needed to be done. Um, where the plague, it takes place in basically one large the bulk of it takes place in one large room in a medical facility in San Francisco. So not a lot of research needs to be done for that. I've been in medical facilities. Um, so it varies by the story you're telling, and it is important to do the research. It's important to ensure that as you're telling the story, there's no gaping hole there. Like, you let's say I'd said the emperor had been killed, right? No, people are going to go, no, that's not what happened. I like the story, but that's not true, right? And the other one, the Galway Banshee again, it's all Irish myths and legends. And I know some from growing up. Um, but I spent a lot of time. I spent weeks and weeks researching various what's a banshee, what's a fairy, what are there's all these there's shaman, there's all sorts of stuff, druids that are part of the Irish culture that I again, spending weeks digging into this stuff and reading and reading and reading until I felt like I had a good handle of it. Those, an Irishman or an Irish person reading that book, I just wanted to ensure that they didn't go, oh, it's a bunch of garbage, bunch of nonsense. The people from, Irish background who have read the book have said, yeah, it's very accurate to the actual myths and legends, the existing or historical myths and legends.
Okay, Sean, great. So, because you have lived in many places like Tokyo in India and other countries, so you know the culture, you understand the culture, you know the history of that places. So you know that you can't be inaccurate when you're
Yeah.
writing. So you have to be very cautious about that when you're
Yeah.
researching
Yeah.
about everything. Okay.
Yeah,
And
unless
most
you're
of the
writing fantasy. If you're writing
yeah.
fantasy, then you create your own world, right? And you make your own rules. But I'm not a fantasy writer, so that I'm in a world where I need to know the actual details.
So Sean, when you're writing a novel or screenplay, what is the hardest part that where you have to put a lot of energy
So it's
in
interesting.
both of these
Well,
kind of writing?
it's actually the same for both,
Oh,
from my opinion. Um, you're starting a new project, it's exciting, right? It's new, it's fun, and I'm not. So there's people on the one far end that lay out the project, every chapter, it's all planned. They got a map for it, and then there's people at this end where I don't know what I'm writing next. So I'm at that end, and Stephen King's at that end. It's like the story just flows, it happens. So there's this excitement because you've got this buildup of the story in your head. I might make a note or two, but I don't do a lot of planning. Um, and you're plowing through the story. You're now 2 months in, and guess what? You're kind of had enough of it, and you're not finished yet. And I always write the ending, like somewhere early mid book. I write the ending because I want to have a goalpost that I'm headed towards, right? So I know how I'm going to end it. I need to play the story in between. But that kind of 2 month, 2.5 month in, you're getting close to the end, and you just had enough of it, which is why I have secondary and pet projects to step away from it. You lose momentum. There's no question, and then you get towards that end, and the moment you're going to get over the goal line, and you're excited about it and pick up, but that woohoo, uh-oh, and then done type of cycle. And it is exactly the same from in my experience, for both the book and the screenplays. It's just the emotion and excitement of creating the story.
okay, Sean. So you are a wonderful storyteller. You're a natural storyteller, and involved in so many projects. And still, do you face writer's block?
I would say no. And again, so you can have writer's block on a particular project, but not general writer's block. So
Okay.
I don't think I've gone more than a day not writing something. And that's why I keep that secondary and pet project stuff on the side. So if I feel a bit of a block on one particular story, I might step away from it for a day or two. What I find is it tends to resolve itself while I'm working on something else. So I'll be working, so I'm writing Jill, and I've kind of hit this a bit of a block. I'll jump over to Galway Banshee, write out another couple chapters, clean up a few things, and then somehow it's almost like the pressure's off, and somehow boom, oh, now I remember what I was doing with Joe, and I go back to Joe. So I don't face what I think is more traditional writer's block, but I do have occasionally project block, which is I've sort of hit a stump in the road on a particular project, and I need to sort of back up and work my way around it again.
Okay. So, Sean, uh, have you ever faced a situation that you created a character and who was like who became so lively, so compelling that you have to change the entire plot, entire story around him or her?
No, I haven't. I have not faced that. I can't imagine a scenario that I would do that in, but I do hear other writers will sometimes significantly adjust the story because of a character. Um, yeah, no, I mean that's an interesting concept, but I have not faced that to
Okay.
date.
So the character is not dominating in your stories. It's the story that is dominating. That the content is
Yeah.
more important than character. Okay, that's
Generally,
great.
that yeah. Jill is the only one that I would say the character was is the powerhouse. The story is very compelling too, but it's the most powerful character I've written to date.
Okay, okay, Sean. So because you write screenplays, so do you face any kind of conflicts with your idea, your vision with direct? Because in screenplay you have to work with the team, director, producer,
Yep.
and the actors. So do you face any kind of conflicts with your ideas, with your vision about the story?
Yeah, yeah. It will always happen. So the screenplays that I write are the writer's screenplay. Then there's the producer's screenplay. Then there's the director's screenplay. So the nature of the story I've written can evolve drastically by the time it actually gets produced. So the two projects I'm working on right now, they're still early cycle, um, but I fully expect. And so what I insist on is that I want to be consulted through the adaptation of the adaptation. So going from the writer's screenplay to producer slash director's screenplay. Um, but it depends on the nature of the contract. So a production house or a producer may say, no, 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 we're going to option your screenplay and we'll see you later. Here's some money. See you later. And they're entitled to do that. So as a writer, a creator, really more than anything else, you have a vision of what this project should be, and you want to have a say in it, but that's up to them, unfortunately. And having a good relationship helps, um, but you might get a very powerful director. I'm working with a Canadian director right now, um, and I fully expect that he'll have changes, but he wants my involvement, which is nice. But it's a bit of a crapshoot, and if you wrote a dark horror that turns out to be a comedy, and, well, you got paid, I guess.
Okay, Sean. So, Sean, how has the landscape of storytelling has changed when you were a kid and now when you are yourself are writing books and screenplays?
I think some things are still the same. A good story is a good story. What has changed, I think, are two things. One is the attention span of the reader. So
Mm,
again, I go back to TikTok and social media. My daughters can't read my books, and the reason they can't is because they can't do anything that takes more than a minute or two, because their
yeah, it's a
minds
big
have been
challenge.
yeah, their minds have been reprogrammed to, oh my God, it's going to take me 5 hours to read this book. Oh my God, oh my God. They can barely get through a movie. Um, so I think that's a significant change, and that's something that creators may have to deal with down the line. Your 120,000 word book, how big is the audience going to be for that? I could write a series of novellas, 20, 25, 30,000 words, right? And the appetite for that may be bigger than the appetite for the 120,000 word book. I don't know the statistics on it, but just the feel I get is a potential challenge or opportunity, depending on what side you're on. I know I need to be on TikTok, but I've stayed away from it for a variety of reasons. The other thing that's happening is, again, I said about the accuracy of the story. You have a device in your hand that you can check if my story was accurate or not, right? In the old days, you'd have to go to the library and get some books or encyclopedias and say, I knew he was wrong. Now I ask Google, hey, was the emperor alive in 1953? You can answer right away. So there's more an emphasis on accuracy. And if you're writing stuff that involves technology, you've got to watch the technology too. So I do have a science fiction book kind of in the works. It's called 254. And that's a 254 refers to a software upgrade in the year 2046. I think I was writing it in. Everybody's connected. And the software upgrade via AI goes awry. And people start dying, crazy things start, technology kind of starts turning on man. Um, but every year, I've had that in the works for probably 5 or 6 years. And every year I revisit something on the technology front has changed in the world. You know, the neural links now, you've got AI is very different than today than it was 5 years ago when I put the concept together. So these are the things, because your book could get very quickly dated, right? Um, so yeah, I think the attention span and willingness of writers to take on the task of reading a story, and then how technology, um, the use of technology within stories uh, varies with the speed at which technology is advancing.
Yeah, Sean. So it's a big challenge that attention span is decreasing, and people generally used to get distracted easily because of so many gadgets, so many things going on in the
Yeah,
life, and people have. I think uh, there is a reduction in reading, overall reading in general, and in entire world. Like people
yeah, I think so.
uh, prefer to watch movies and watch videos than reading about the book. In fact, books are now turned into audio books and
Yeah,
uh,
yeah. I'm
summaries, so
just
many
starting.
summaries, videos available. So people prefer to watch those things.
Yeah,
So,
I just started with my audiobooks. I got my first one out, and I'm starting to look
okay.
at others now too. That's a whole other world. I'm I was gonna say. I mean, I know the value of them. I have to figure out marketing them. I haven't done a good job of that yet, but we'll get there.
So, Sean, how do you keep yourself stay inspired? Like, still you are writing and you are working on new projects. So, what motivates you to wake up in the morning and start writing, thinking about it, and coming up with new ideas, interacting people, and keep your creative juice flowing always?
Um, I think a part of it is just natural. I'm addicted to creating. It is an addiction. So every day I need to feed the addiction by writing something. And it goes also back to without creating, without writing, where's my purpose at this stage of life? It's not just existing. I have family purpose, friends purpose, but what's my own real inner purpose? So it isn't really an option for me. It's a not be encouraged to write. I don't think I've woken up in the last 7 years not feeling that way, except that time I had COVID. Maybe that was it. But other than that, no, it's just it's more than a job or a task. It's me. It's what I am. And I don't feel right unless I'm doing something creative. Whether it's a book, a screenplay. I put together on the film side. I put together images and sequences and stuff like that. And I enjoy doing it. I don't know what would cause me to stop.
It's amazing, Sean. It's amazing because people generally want to retire, want to spend time in traveling and doing other stuff. Okay, and people, the whole life, people are like spending their life in rat race, and then they dream to retire one day, and then spend their life in doing some or working on some hobbies and other things. But you love to do this thing every day. Okay, you
Oh
don't want to
yeah,
take any kind of retirement. It's a part of your life now. Okay,
it,
one
it,
last
it
question,
is.
Sean. Yeah,
Yeah, I was
yeah.
just gonna say, if you talk to people who are retired, and I found this out over the last few years because I'm getting to an age where people are starting to retire. They go nuts. They're retired for 6 months, And they go, okay, now what? Right. So, and
Right.
I'm having that discussion with my wife. She is a senior vice president for her company, a software company, and she's still traveling. She's off to New Zealand this week or next week for a project. Um, and she's busy all the time. And at some point, will retire. And I've said to her, "What are you going to do? Back to structure and purpose. Before you retire, make sure you got a handle on what's your structure going to look like. What do I have to do? What are the things I'm going to do? And what purpose are you fulfilling for yourself at that stage?" So I'm not sure I will ever retire. If I lose my eyesight, maybe that'll be it.
Great, Sean. Great. Really great. It was really nice meeting you. One last question, Sean. What advice would you like to give to young authors who want to live like you, who want to become like you? So, what they should do?
Put a lot
From
of
where
money
they should
aside.
start?
Put a lot of money aside. It's not a well, I often refer to writing as is the real estate market. 1% of people make most of the money. As the same in real estate, and the same thing in the writing world. So you're going to have to accept that unless you write a masterpiece, and perhaps there are people out there that will do it. But for the average writer, you're not going to make a big earning until you have a number of books out there and you master the advertising world. I know some people that are making phenomenal money because they got 20, 25 books out and they've mastered the advertising world. But that takes a period of time to get there. So you have to accept that you're likely going to do part-time writing, part-time work to continue to advance yourself. So be prepared for the lifestyle of the writer. I have a good one now because I had a very successful corporate career. So I do travel. My wife and I travel, and I write when I'm traveling. She reads while we're traveling. You're not going to talk 24 hours a day, right? The other thing I would say is read, 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 read. Read a lot of books, read different authors. Um, Look at how they spin the tale, the pace at which the story takes place, the characters, so on. Learn that from reading and accept feedback. Again, I had a little trouble with it at the beginning of my career. I accept it now. I don't always like it, but you're not always going to like critical feedback. It's why it's there. It's to critique your work in order to make it better as you go forward. So, be prepared for lifestyle. Read, 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 and accept feedback. Look for feedback. I always tell writers you should be telling the story to people every day. Your coworkers, your friends, your family, um, and that again forces you to think through the nitty gritty detail of the story.
Great. So, any book you would like to suggest on writing screenplays?
Any sort of book?
Any book on screenplays that you would like to suggest to aspiring writers?
No, I haven't. Oddly, I have not read many screenwriting books.
Okay.
Um, so what I did was, and again for writers, this is encouraged. Learn the art, right? So I took creative writing for the book side, um, but I also did the film studies program here at Ryerson University in Toronto. And in film studies, there's several courses on screenwriting. So I learned screenwriting from a professional screenwriter.
Okay.
It's I'm sure you could learn it on your own, then you would need a book. There's a lot of online courses too that I've seen that look like they're pretty good, um, but you need to learn the art as well. So great storyteller, learning the art and mechanics of writing, and you get a good output, either book or screenplay.
Okay. Great, Sean. It was really nice meeting you, learning so many things from you, your creative process, your mindset, your daily routine, that how you come up with ideas and to how you write those ideas and convert them into bestsellers. It was really amazing. So many things I learned from you. So thank you so much for sharing all your insights and all your secrets, and wish you all the best for your future
Uh,
projects. And it was really, really very impressive that I learned what I learned from you in this podcast.
Well, I appreciate the time you took to listen to me talk.
Okay, Sean, thank you so much. Wish
Okay,
you all
thank
the
you.
best. Okay.
Thank you. You too.
That was an incredible conversation with Sean O'Neill, a true visionary in the world of storytelling. From his journey as a best selling author to the mastery of screenwriting, Sean's insights have undoubtedly left us inspired. Be sure to check out his work and don't forget to subscribe to the Vibhor Asri podcast for more in depth interviews with the world's leading masters from different fields. Thanks for listening, and we will see you next time.